Good morning, my name is Freedom. Buckle in, I got some stuff to talk about today. I'll start with the White Panther Party. First point was to fully support the Black Panther Party. Here's what it meant, what it means today, what we can do. The White Panther Party understood that white people's role was not to lead black liberation, but to remove white opposition to it and use white privilege as a weapon against the system. That could be material support, resources, money, infrastructure, survival programs, and resource sharing. The White Panther Party San Francisco chapter ran a free breakfast program that fed 5,000 families, directly mirroring the Black Panther survival program. Members pooled communal resources, housing, food, printing equipment. They used their access to counterculture networks, music venues, underground papers, radical bookstores to fundraise for bail, legal fees, and Black Panther Party survival programs. What this means today is that white organizers should be running or supporting mutual aid programs, bail funds, and community defense networks, not as separate white projects, but in direct coordination with and accountability to black-led organizations. White Panther Party used white media access to bring national attention to political prisoners and police repression, forcing the state to respond publicly rather than disappear activists quietly. With mass deportation under Trump's second term ramping up in 2026, white organizers need to be organizing legal defense funds, know your rights trainings, and court solidarity for undocumented community members and political prisoners. White organizers should be doing community support, not waiting for permission to act. We can print, use media to our advantage. The White Panther Party ran underground newspapers and used their cultural capital in the music scene to spread Black Panther messaging to white youth audiences. They understood that white people could access platforms, radio shows, concert stages, college newspapers that black radicals were shut out of, and used that access deliberately. White organizers with social media platforms, podcasts, or TikTok accounts should be amplifying black-led organizing. This follows Fred Hampton's Rainbow Coalition model that was set in 1968 in Chicago, which coordinated the Black Panther Party, the Puerto Rican Young Lords, and the Young Patriots, which were poor white Appalachians, in a multiracial, anti-capitalist alliance. Each group organized their own community while working under shared political goals, fighting against police brutality, capitalism, racism, and imperialism. In 2026, with rising ICE raids, anti-trans legislation, we need coordinated but autonomous formations that let each community organize its own people while fighting the same fucking system. The Young Patriots were white migrants from Appalachia living in Chicago's uptown neighborhood, facing poverty and police violence, but also carrying racist attitudes from the backgrounds. Fred Hampton reached out to them not to tokenize white people in poverty, but to organize them away from reactionary politics and into class struggle. The Young Patriots were Confederate flag patches initially, which caused tension, but Hampton understood that white working class people needed to be organized by other white people who could speak their language and challenge their racism from inside. The Young Patriots' role was to organize poor whites to stop being the foot soldiers of white supremacy, provide armed community defense in their own neighborhoods, and coordinate with black and brown formations without trying to lead them. White organizers need to be in rural areas now, working class neighborhoods, and conservative spaces, organizing other white people away from MAGA politics and towards solidarity. This means actually going to gun shows, union halls, churches, and dive bars. The coalition coordinated on actions, not identity, which kept the focus on dismantling systems rather than performing diversity. White Panther formations today should operate the same way, organizing white communities in accountability to black-led movements, not trying to merge into or speak for them. What being on the quote-unquote front line today can mean is physical shielding and buffer work. Pasty people have a different relationship to police and ICE. We're less likely to be shot on sight, beaten in custody, detained long-term, or deported. Privilege is tactical advantage to be weaponized in defense of others. Showing up as a literal front line can mean placing your body between ICE agents and undocumented community members, standing between cops and protesters at risk of arrest, using white presence to de-escalate or absorb state violence. Right now, ICE raids are escalating under Trump's mass deportation agenda. White people need to be organizing rapid response networks to physically block ICE operations. People that are pasty generally get released from ICE custody within a day if detained. Undocumented people face indefinite detention, a separation from children, and deportation. if that. White organizers can take arrest risks that others cannot, blocking ICE vehicles, filming arrest, providing legal observation, and forcing ICE to go through us first. We can form white-led response teams that get the call when ICE is in the neighborhood and show up as the first line of physical defense, provide transportation and legal support for people that can't be around ICE. This is a tactic the original Black Panthers, Young Patriots, and other Rainbow Coalition groups engaged in. Armed self-defense as a deterrent to police violence and fascist attacks. We can show up armed to defend against ICE raids, fascist attacks, or unlawful police violence. This isn't vigilante LARPing. It's organized, disciplined community defense rooted in real relationships and political accountability. With Proud Boys and Patriot Front conducting open intimidation campaigns and ICE doing workplace raids, armed organizers, especially pasty ones, can provide visible deterrence while following black and brown leadership. White people often get lighter sentences, better plea deals, and more access to competent legal defense. We can use that to take charges when possible, provide bail and legal funds, show up to court dates in numbers to pressure judges, and use white credibility to advocate for others in the system. The White Panther Party did this for John Sinclair and others, using national media campaigns to force legal outcomes that black defendants rarely receive. Logistics and support work can be unglamorous. Driving people to court, providing housing for organizers under threat, running legal clinics, child care during actions, cooking meals for long organizing meetings, setting up phone trees, doing jail support, managing secure communications, providing medical aid training. This is the work that keeps movements alive. With nonprofit funding being cut and surveillance increasing, movements need more underground infrastructure. White people with resources and lower surveillance profiles should be building it. Using white access to infiltrate and disrupt, white people can access spaces that people of color often cannot. Conservative churches, gun clubs, police union meetings, far-right organizing spaces, which historically some White Panther Party and white radical groups did do reconnaissance on police and FBI activities. They provided early warnings about raids and used insider information to protect black organizers, documenting police collaboration with ICE, exposing fascist organizing, using white passing privilege to gather intelligence that protects others are all things that we can be doing now. Monitor local police scanner traffic during protests, document ICE vehicle movements, attend public city council meetings to pressure officials. Accountability means taking direction, not deciding what's needed. The White Panther Party didn't decide unilaterally what support looked like. They asked the Black Panthers what was needed and then did it. Real solidarity also means listening when told, "We don't need you here. This action isn't for you," or "You're doing this wrong." It means being willing to do boring, repetitive, or thankless work because the movement needs it. So stop asking, "How can I help?" in public for validation. Build actual relationships with black-led organizations. Ask privately what they need, then do it. Real support can mean real risk. John Sinclair was sentenced to 10 years for 2 joints because he was a political target. And imagine what people of color were sentenced to. White Panther Party offices were raided, members were surveilled by the FBI, and they faced violence from police and right-wing groups. They knew the risk and took it anyway because they understood that white people avoiding risk while black people die is not solidarity. Today, with Patriot Act powers, facial recognition, and digital surveillance, organizing is fucking riskier than ever, but the risk is still unequally distributed. White organizers need to be the ones hosting servers, managing encrypted communications, and taking legal exposure when possible. The core hasn't changed. White supremacy, capitalism, and imperialism still structure the system. What we need to do hasn't changed either. Organize other white people, follow black leadership, and use privilege as a fucking weapon against the system. The right is organizing poor and working class people into MAGA, militia movements, and Christian nationalism. We need to be building dual power infrastructure. The original Panthers and White Panther Party built survival programs, free breakfast, health clinics, political education that met immediate needs while building revolutionary consciousness. Be willing to lose things. The original White Panther Party members went to prison, lost jobs, they were surveilled, and they faced violence. A mistake white organizers make is centering themselves, building personal brands, speaking for others, claiming leadership roles in multiracial spaces. The White Panther Party succeeded because they understood their role: support, amplify, defend, and organize other white people to do the same fucking thing. Use your position to get out of the way. The White Panther Party understood that being white in America gave them access, credibility, and survivability that black radicals did not have. They turned it into a weapon, using white spaces to organize against whiteness, white media to amplify black voices, and white bodies to absorb state violence. This isn't about guilt or performance. It's about tactical deployment of the privilege we fucking have in service of liberation. If you're not willing to put your body, your resources, your time, and your freedom on the line the way the original White Panthers did, then you're just fucking cosplaying. We have a clear choice here. Organize white people into the fight against fascism and empire, or watch them get organized into it by the other side. There is no middle fucking ground. All power to the people means all of us doing the work our position in the system requires. All power to the people.